Hello everyone and welcome to Geotab's online training. Thanks for joining us today for Tuesday's talk. This is Carrie Carter and today we are going to go through part 2 of our Getting Up and Running with MyGeotab. And this is basically what we're going to cover. We went through our basics. I'll just flip through here. We just went through our basics last week of logging on, how to get started, going through the product guide and where to find it, setting up your vehicles, live map, all the stuff that's around productivity in our live map, and trip history and kind of dissecting that, and then users. Now this week we're going to go into high gear because we got a lot to cover. We're going to go through groups, what they mean, how to set them up, zones, when to use them, how to set them up, how to import zones, that idea. We're going to go through some rules and exceptions, how to run those reports so that we can find out what rules or conditions have been broken. We'll take a look at the risk management briefly so you can get an idea for when to use a risk management versus an exceptions report. We're going to take a look at fuel data, which of course is always important to everyone. We always want to see our fuel data, so I brought that in as part of a basic just to give you an overview so that you can understand how it works. And then we're just going to take briefly a look at reporting and some dashboards just so that you can kind of get an overall picture of everything. All right. As I said, last week we went through our map. We spent a lot of time there and we set up our users and we went through the trip history and all of that stuff. Now I'm going to take a look at groups. Groups are something that you use in different areas of the software. Groups can be set up for vehicles. They can be set up for zones. They can be set up for users. They're also used in reports. So those are the 4 areas. And where groups really work is when it's a little bit of a larger fleet. Sometimes you can do it in smaller, but often we see it in a larger fleet when you have things like different types of vehicles or different regions. You might have things set up like, let's just take a look right here. If I go into groups right here and I choose my group option, I'm just going to show you here what this company is set up as. So we have locations. I'll skip that one. We have reporting groups, so different types of reports can go to different types of managers, so we can have that set up. Vehicle types or vehicles owned. Now let's look into each one of these things. So if we take a look inside locations, well, I have region 1, 2, and 3. This could be east, west, north, and south. I have groups set up so that I can identify that into separate areas. Now, a manager can be a part of each one of these regions, so I can have manager 1 here, manager 2 here, and manager 3 here. What that will allow me to do is set this up so that this manager, he's a user, he will have vehicles that are part of that region, and therefore he can see only his vehicles. And we can also have it set up to report the same way. So he would only see the reporting of his vehicles and not someone else's. That's the beauty behind groups. All right, we can also take a look here. Messaging is something that is set up only for Garmin, but it is available. And if you're using Garmin, it is great for this. It is a separate session, but just to let you know, there's different setups that by default are there, whether the driver is available, if there's a breakdown, if they're off duty, on duty, or panic. Those are the ideas that you can have within Garmin. Let's take a look at vehicle type. So inside my vehicle type, I might have heavy-duty vehicles, light-duty vehicles, medium-duty vehicles. Inside heavy-duty vehicles, I might have flatbeds, trailers, reefers, and roll tights. So you can see how you can identify. If I have a fleet of, I'll say 1,500, I'm going to have a totally mixed fleet. I may have some medium duty. Medium duty would be things like a box truck or a pickup. That idea. And then light duty vehicles, obviously passenger vehicles. So I have it broken up by different types of vehicles. I also have it broken out by location. I could also have something broken out by vehicles owned, whether they're corporate vehicles or employee vehicles. Very simple to be able to create a group. You simply click on this little plus sign and I can say leased vehicles. I can create a color if I want. I can put in a description if I want, and I simply hit save. By doing that, I have now added to that corporate vehicles, employee vehicles, or leased vehicles. If I wanted to do it inside location, I could set up another region just simply by clicking, choosing region 4, and I hit save. That's it. There's not a whole lot to it. So you can see from here, by creating groups, I can really identify where the vehicles belong, where the users belong. We can also use it, as I said, for zones, which we're going to take a look at in a second, and then we also create it for reports. One other portion that we can also set it up for is inside our filter, and after we add a few vehicles into one of these groups, you will see how that filter works as well. The filter is right up here, right beside the all, and if I click on that, you can actually see all of those groups that you can see at the top level here are all listed right here. So I could actually set this up and say, let's say I only wanted to see locations. It would only show me the vehicles that would be inside the locations I choose. Let's go inside our vehicles. And I'm going to add 2 vehicles. This one here, right over here is where groups are. So I'm going to go inside group. Right now it's a part of company group. So if I click on this little drop down and I select, okay, in my location, it is going to be in region 1. And it's going to be all in region 1. I notice here that I also have some branches set up. So this could be like a region, and then I could have actually city locations within that region. That's the idea there. Okay, so it's set up right now inside region, and then I just simply click Save. So that's region 1. I'm going to set this vehicle up as well inside region 1. So again, I just click, select Groups. I come down to my locations. Inside region 1, it's going to be all in region 1. If I click off of it, it's right there, and I select Save. Now, I'm going to hover over it, and it will actually tell me here that it is inside Groups region 1. So Groups location region 1. Same thing is true with this vehicle right here. Now, I have 5 vehicles listed here. If I select this filter right here, and I say inside locations, I only want to see region 1, and I want to see everything in region 1, I now only see 2 vehicles. So you can see how that would work. Let's imagine that we have a fleet of, 500 or 1,000 or 30, but we want to break them down so we only look at obviously the vehicles that belong in that group. And you can do that so easily just by this little group filter right here. Okay, I'm just going to click that off, and you can see that all of my vehicles come back. So that's the idea behind groups. Now, you're going to see this also when we go into zones, because we can set up zones or geofences or identified areas that we want to remember. One other place that you will see it here, and I'm just going to talk about this, inside users. So if I just go and select myself, and I take a look inside, and I can see right here the data access. Now, if I have a manager that is set for region 1, I'm going to set that data access to only see region 1. Therefore, that manager would only see the vehicles inside region 1. It works wonderful for that. In one particular case, I have a fleet of about 15,000, and I have it set up so that each regional manager will only see his fleet. Might be 300, it might be 30, but he only sees his fleet, and they're all within the same database. So it's a great way to do it. Your data access is what's going to give the user the information that they need so they only see that part of the fleet. Okay, next we're going to take a look at zones. Zones, as I mentioned, are an area that are identified or a geofence, and they're an identified area that you want to remember, you want to use, you want to send a vehicle to that location. You might want to report by zones to find out when the vehicle is actually gone to that particular location. It could be a customer location, it could be a home location. We have different types of zones. By default, we have home, office, customer location, or personal location. So those are the default zone types, and then we can broaden that however you want. All right, so let's take a look right now. Zones are very simple to create. I have a number of them created already. You can see through this list here. Let's just take a look on the map. If I look on the map, I can actually see they are identified here. Most of them are different shapes. A zone can be any shape. It can be circular, it can be triangular if you want, it can be square or polygon shape, whatever you want it to be. By default, if you just say set up a square zone, it would set one up as a square zone. So let's start with that. If I just click on any location on the map right here, I can add a square zone right here. So I'm just going to click on it. What it does is it actually takes me into a screen called Zone Edit, and I'm just going to type in the name of a zone. You don't always have to. It will automatically give you an address, but if I want to name it, I would do that. Now, here's where we're talking about groups. Do I want to publish this zone to all of my groups or only a certain area? In other words, if I'm looking at a city and I have my city broken up into regions, Region 2 does not need to see Region 1 zones. So you might just publish them for that region. So if I was to do that, I would simply go into Locations, and I'm going to say this is a Region 1 zone. Everyone in the region should see it. So again, clicking off will take that. If I needed to put any comment on here, I can do that. Now, is it visible on the map? Will you always see it on the map when you go to the map? Yes or no? The different types, as mentioned, we have customer, home, office, and personal. You can use these however you want, or you can set up your own type. The option up at the top is types right there. You can set up new ones if you want. These ones are just standard ones that we have found work. And again, you can add to it if needed. All right, the type of zone this is, in this case, I'm going to say that it is an office zone. And the color I'm going to make it, you can kind of set up your zones however you want. My suggestion might be that you set up different types of zones in different colors, if that can work for you. So we have one client that actually sets them up so they have receivers and donors. They're a food bank, so their donors are all of the restaurants and the grocery stores and all that kind of thing, and then the recipients, which would be obviously the food banks that are around town. They're set up in different colors. So if you look on the map, you can quickly identify whether they are recipients or donors. I'm going to say in this case, as an office, it's going to be yellow. My transparency level, and what the transparency level will actually allow you to see through the zone so that you can see the map still in behind it. And if you make it solid, you will not see through it. In this case, I'll make it somewhere around 65%. Last portion here ends at. What it actually does is it expires. It doesn't delete the whole zone. It expires, so it doesn't show up anymore, but you can still run reports off of it and it will still work. But where this works is, let's say, for example, you had customer sites that might be useful for a week. So you want to set up that zone for the week, but then have it expire, if you will, on Friday. So I can actually set that up to say it'll expire in a week, or it might expire tomorrow. We have one company that works off of delivery services, so they want to set up all of their zones for the next day and set up a whole route. And by doing that, but they want them expired at the end of the day. So they can do that just by saying it expires tomorrow. So that's basically setting up a zone. And I'm just going to hit save right here. And when I come back to the map, here is my zone. I'm just going to zoom in here. Here's my zone. It's a standard square zone. And if I take a look at it, I say, you know what? I'm going to change that. So if I left click on it, I can change my zone shape. Now, by default, it showed up as a square, but I can make it any shape I want. And I do that simply by just moving these little dots around. I can also add dots just by clicking on the line, stretching it however I want. I can actually make it so it might go even closer to the way the road is. And there I have my new zone. And if I hit save, again, it takes me back to my zone edit screen. I can take a look at it. Yes, that's the sample. That's the name of it. It is only published to region 1. I don't need any comments. It's visible. It's an office type zone. Now it also says show when stopped inside the zones. If you're inside the zone, you will always show as a star, so it would actually show that to you. The color that I like, and it's never going to end. I can say that it's going to end in a week. Okay, and I hit save, and now my zone shape has changed. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and you can see that I have a number of zones here, and it says that it's an office zone type and it's region 1. If I hover over here, it's a customer zone, and it is part of the company group. So it is visible to everyone. If I was only part of region 1, then this is what I'm going to see. If I am a part of region 2, I will not see that at all. Come over here just to show you if I wanted to draw a circle. That's actually what the circle looks like. It's a whole bunch of points on the map, but it will show up as a circle if you want it. If I click on it and I change my zone shape, that's what that circle looks like. So you can actually see it there. So as far as creating zones go, very simple to do. Where do zones show up? Well, if I take a look right now inside my map and I go into trip history, and I'm just going to show, let's say, all vehicles. And if I click back through, I'm just going to come down here. See how these underlines? All these underlines are actually zones that are created. This 1075 North Service Road, that's our Geotab head office. If it's an underline inside my trip history, it shows it is a zone. That's what it'll identify to you. This is our Tim Hortons, our local coffee shop. This is its location, but it is a zone. It has been identified. So you can actually see it just as you run through your trip history, you can actually see where the zones are that have been identified. All right, let's take a look inside zones right here. Just to make a comment as well, importing zones, because it is a question that is asked often. If you have, I'll say 10 zones, you can import them. If you have 500 zones, you can import them. If you have 50,000 zones, you can import them. I do suggest you don't import them in the middle of the day. You should be importing zones probably after hours if it's that many, but they certainly can be done. We do not have limits on how many zones you put in. So that importing zone is very simple to do. You simply set up your file, and I'm just going to hit this question mark right here. I mentioned this the other day, but if I hit this question mark, it will actually give me some information that I need for setting up a zone or for importing zones. So I have two different options here. And you can see that one is with a name and a latitude and longitude, fine, or one with a name and an address. This is probably the most common one, but both work. And you just follow these instructions, putting it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then just drop the file right here. All of your zones will be created. And it will tell you if there's an error in any of those zones. So it's very simple to do. All right, let's take a look back at our zone list. So if I'm taking a look through here, I have a number of different zones set up. And as I mentioned, there's a Tim Hortons zone. If I take a look back up here, I have Geotab head office. So if I click on this zone, it takes me right into the zone edit. And you can see there's the name. It's published to everyone. It's visible on the map. It's a customer zone. Oh, I look at that and say, you know what? That should not be a customer zone. That should be an office zone. So I probably need to fix that. Just going to wipe out customer, and there's office. That's my transparency. That's the color that's set, and it's never going to end. Very simple. If I hit save, it takes me back in. Now I'm just going to flip back in here, and you can actually see the change has been made, so it's now office. I'm going to show it on the map. So it clicks right here, and it actually shows to me right on the map that's where I am. Now, my transparency here is a little bit dark, so you can actually see back up on the map, but it is a little bit darker in that as I hover over, you can barely see the outline there, but it is there. So that's what the transparency is all about. As I mentioned, zones they're simple. They are identifiable locations that you want to refer to later, whether it be to see whether the vehicle went. Give you an example, you get a call 2 days later that says, your vehicle came to our location and they were speeding, and you can actually go through and see that if they were inside that zone. You can see how long they were inside the zone. We can create rules that also refer to zones, and we're going to take a look at that next. Zones are something that they are widely used, and it depends on what your business is, how you're going to use them. But they, as I said, they show up in reports. You can use them for groups. You can use them for rules. They are all kind of combined together to give you that whole solution that will work for you. All right, so let's take a look right now inside our rules. What I should probably ask first, Stephanie, do we have any questions at this point?
Just a couple of housekeeping kind of questions. If a fleet wants to see all the zones, you just don't assign them to group. You leave them assigned to the company group.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Is there a way to remove the previously uploaded zones? We have hundreds of duplicates since the list wasn't double-checked first.
Actually, there is, and that is something that we can probably take offline. So if you have a reseller, you can certainly bring it to the reseller and we'll walk you through that. But we do have a tool that will allow you to remove multiple zones at once. Otherwise, it is one at a time.
Okay.
Okay.
And then another one says a zone needs to be seen by a particular region, but also one user needs to see all zones.
So your one user needs to be part of the company group?
That's what I think, yeah. I think that's what they mean.
Yes. Okay. So that's what I would suggest there. If the user that needs to see all zones should be part of the company group, and then the or the other groups would only see their own zones.
Okay, and then, one of the points that one of the resellers is making is that, one of the major differentiators of the Geotab solution is the ability to reprocess information, including information about zone visits. So just because you didn't know that you wanted to know if they went into that zone at the time that it happened, you can go back and reprocess that data. I call it the Hooters rule. So we get a complaint that a bunch of trucks are sitting outside of a Hooters, and we see that they've been there all afternoon on a Friday night. And we want to know how many times that happens. You put a zone around that building, reprocess back the last 6 months, and we saw that these 3 or 4 guys were taking their company vehicles to the same Hooters at 3:30 every Friday afternoon, staying until 9:30, 10 o'clock in the evening, and that I sure they drank nothing but Pepsi while they were there, and they drove home as safe as can be. But the risk factor is that I still want to know if they're going there. So now you can draw a zone and find that information. Would like to see how to delete multiple zones.
Okay, so to delete multiple zones off of your screen. All right, so if I have, let's say that there's 5 zones here that I want to remove. Now we have an option here, and this is also available inside your vehicles as well as inside your users. So you can take a look at many of them at once and do something to them all at the same time. Now this little option right here with that drop down arrow, select visible, select individual, or select none is what it's set to. I'm going to set it to select individual, and what you see is a little box that shows up as well. Again, I mentioned before, you can use this in vehicles as well as in users. Good example inside vehicles would be if you have to change time zones for a number of vehicles. You can select them right on the screen just by clicking on the ones that you want to select and then changing a time zone. And it will allow you to, as you can see here, edit selected zones. So you could do that by touching all of them at once just by selecting them. You can also remove selected zones right here. Now I'm not going to remove that one, but I will remove this Canadian Tire. I will keep this one, and I'm going to remove the Home Depot and the old office. All right, so I have selected out of the 22 zones. You can see that I have a check mark beside 3 of them. And I'm just going to simply choose remove selected zones. I'm going to remove 3 zones, and it has been completed. So I now have 19 zones. Those ones that I don't want are now gone. So if I don't have too many and I just need to remove 10 or 20 or something like that, I can run through this list. If I have 250 to remove, that's where that tool can come in that I mentioned before. Reach out to us and we'll give you that tool to use it. All right, so that is zones. Now what Stephanie was talking about as well was reprocessing data. And zones are something that you can go back and find out if someone went through a zone that wasn't set up before. Now that brings us through to our rules. I'm going to go into rules right here. Rules are also known as conditions, and you either break a rule or meet a condition. That's the idea. It's not always breaking a rule. Sometimes it's meeting a condition. And then we will actually report on it as an exception. So inside our rules, we have 16 rules that are standard, stock standard rules, best in practice. They have been identified in the market as what's important. So with these rules, we can look at harsh braking, hard acceleration, harsh cornering, speeding, and seatbelt. These are all safety rules. That's what they're based around. after hours usage, and then we have something like a possible accident, which I will tell you is probably the only one that I would set to a notification, because you want to be notified as soon as it may be happening. The other ones, if I just select any of these options right here off of this rule set, I am doing it for the entire fleet. If you have a mixed fleet, you would want to create custom rules for each type. Now, I'll give you an example here. Speeding is always one that we can look at so you can see it. If I turn it on, it is for the entire fleet. If I have, and in this particular set, I have a mixed fleet, I have heavy, I have medium, and I have light duty. I might want to set my speeding differently for my heavy duty versus my medium and light duty. So what I would do is actually create a rule for different group types, all right? And I would do that right through here through my speeding. Let me take a look first at all of the rest of the rules that we have set, and then we'll come back to speeding and create one. Now, possible accident is something that I do suggest is a notification. Very simple to set up a notification. It's just that little envelope right there. As I touch it, I can say, well, what do I want to do? I want to add an email to it. My name is already there, so I'm already going to be notified. If I needed to remove that person and put a new one in, I just simply exit. And to put a new one in, I add an email. My email is myself, and I have it added. So now you can see I am going to be notified if there is a possible accident within any one of the fleet. Highly suggested for anyone. All right, inside productivity, these are the rules that we have as stock standard rules. They are for the entire fleet, as mentioned. They are all part of productivity, that it may be for late arrival or early leave, unauthorized home stops, too much office time. Many of these things are worked through the work hours, and you can have your work hours set up for different types of work hours. They might be for office hours versus heavy duty hours versus light duty vehicles. Let me just travel down through here, and then we also have fleet. Now, inside our fleet, we have things like, I like to call it proactive monitoring. These are the two that I like to look at here, which is the engine light on. I do want that on for anyone in my fleet, so I'm going to turn that on for everyone. I want to know if the engine light comes on, because often the driver forgets by the time he gets back into the desk. And the other thing I want to know about is the battery drain. If it ever goes below 9 volts, I want to be notified, or I want it to show up in a report. Whatever the case may be, I may want to be notified. So again, similar to my possible accident, I would just click on my little envelope right there. But I want to know about it before it happens, so my truck isn't, or my vehicle of any kind is not at the side of the road broken down. The engine light coming on, same idea. I want to know about it so that I don't have a breakdown and then have to fix it. All right, now what we also have is any number of customized rules. Now these customized rules here, they always show up at the bottom, and I have them set up. We're going to go through a basic one. It's just going to take a look back up at speeding. I would suggest as you start out, two very easy ones if you're interested in safety are both speeding and seatbelt. If you start with those ones and you get comfortable with them, then you can start looking at more of the dangerous driving, harsh cornering, hard acceleration, hard braking, all of those types of things which are all part of safety. And you can actually eventually mold them into a driver's scorecard, if you will, to see how the driver's doing. All right, so let's take a look right now at speeding. I want to create a speeding for different types of vehicles in my fleet. So if I simply hit my little pencil here, which is my edit, it is custom speeding. I'm just going to call it sample speeding. And I have colors that I can set up. These colors actually show up on the map, and they show up as the triangle when you might be breaking the rule or the condition has been met. Please make sure that you try to color code your information here for rules, because otherwise you'll end up with 10 different rules and they're all red on the map. Whether you want them published to all groups or not. Now, in this particular case, I'm going to say that I want it for vehicle types, and this is going to be for heavy duty. Everybody in the heavy duty has to follow under this, so I'm going to click it on heavy duty. No comments are needed. Now, my condition is, this is basically what's set up by default. It is the speed compared to the speed limit data of the road is greater than 10 miles an hour for greater than 20 seconds. Now, because it's a heavy-duty market, I don't want to look at that. When I say heavy-duty, I'm referring to Class 7 and 8 vehicles, so the heavier ones, the transport trucks. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to edit this just a little bit, and I'm going to change it to 5 miles over for 10 seconds. Now, you don't have to be a programmer to figure it out. You can see those numbers, but I'm going to click this little option right here, so it'll allow me to edit it. This is actually the code for it. Again, we don't have to be developers to do it. We just need to find these little numbers here. So if it's longer than not 20 seconds, I want to look at it for 10 seconds. And my value is going to be 5 miles an hour over. And it is also set to the speed limit data as mentioned before. That's it. That's all I needed to do. I'm going to hit save. And now if I come down here, I can actually see here is my sample speeding. It is part of the heavy group. I'm going to click on it. Now, one part that we haven't done, we did the name, we did the condition, but nobody's going to be notified right now. Do we want a notification for a rule? You can try it. My suggestion is no. I always say start with it, and then within the week you'll say it's filling up my inbox, because every time they speed, you will be notified. So again, simple to do. You just click on the add email. Templates are something that we can cover in another session, but you can have a customized template set up or just use the default template. And if I want to put in, again, myself, I want to add my name. If anybody is speeding 5 over that is in the heavy group, and I'm going to add, and now I am set to be emailed every time that happens. And I simply hit save. Very simple to do. There's my sample speeding right there. Now that's just one area that we can look at. What if we wanted to find out if vehicles were speeding inside a certain zone? Because inside that zone they're only allowed to go 20 miles an hour. So we can change that basic rule into something a little bit more detailed. So if I take a look at sample speeding and I come back into my conditions, well, now I want to add something to it. I want to add a zone here. So if I'm saying I'm going to add a zone, and when I do that, it's going to be either a zone or a zone type. Now, if I wanted to make it a zone type and say every time it's inside the office zone, I could do that. I'm going to set up the zone, and from here, it's going to give me a list of all of the zones. I will take the hospital. Every time it's inside the zone in the hospital zone, and if it has entered, if it's exited, if it's outside, inside, or if it stops. So all of these things are going to be different depending on which one you choose. Obviously, if you're entering a zone, it's simply crossing over the zone. If you're exiting a zone, again, it's crossing over that boundary. There's not a time space put on that. It's just simply a crossover. If it's inside a zone, that would be where we were looking here to say every time you're inside a zone, you can't go over 5 miles an hour. That would be the idea, over the speed limit. So I say add. Now, notice how it has now added and inside the area of the Burlington Hospital. That's how I create my rule, and I can expand on it. I started just with my speed limit. I set it for 5 miles an hour over for greater than 10 seconds. Now I can also set it up, as I did here, inside the area of the hospital. I could change this as well to say instead of the speed limit data, I don't want to be going more than 20 miles an hour, period, ever. Not inside that zone. So you can see there how easy it is to add to that rule or to create new rules that are working in zones. You can see here that we have adding engine data. We talked about zones. We can add actual speeds or speed limits, as you can see here, your speed limit data. Just a note on this as well, you can remove estimated road speeds, so you're not breaking rules on things that don't actually have a true road speed. Things like for a certain duration, again, that would be greater than 10 seconds here. And then we have a number of other options, and I have to tell you before we go into more options, that engine data, that is an endless long list. If you want to find out any time battery gets drained, or when you want coolant, I mean, those are simple ones. If we have a catalytic converter problem, we can also add that information so that it will report that rule or that condition has been met. Now let's take a look at more. We have a number of different things here that we can add a device. Inside device, we can add ignition. We can add the actual device number or serial number or name. We can add drivers. Inside trips, we can look at whether it's driving or it's stop or the distance. All kinds of auxiliaries, which would be part of our IOX auxiliaries. We can look inside work hours. I have one set up so that you can find out if they are moving outside of your work hours or if they arrived before or after the start of work hours. All right, so wrappers, things like is value more or less, equal to, so you want to find out if it actually matches something. And then we can look at logic to say if it's here or here, or if it's over this and under this, as far as the speeding rule goes. So those are the kinds of ideas that you can actually work with rules and make your conditions so that you can report on them and find out what's going on in your fleet. Which brings us to, I'm just going to save that, which brings us to the next option, which is our exceptions. Now we have two different ways of reporting on rules, both exceptions as well as inside our risk management, which is right here. And just give you a simple little example of a risk management, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. But there are two ways here to report on your rules. So inside exceptions, what you have is basically it's blank sitting right now. Inside our options box, which options do show up in many different places, and inside the options we kind of set up the things that we want to look at for this report. Now I'm going to say for exceptions, I'm going to take a look at last week. I'm going to run it by vehicle, and I'm going to say that I want all vehicles. Inside my rules, the rules that I want to look at, and if I set up example here, my sample speeding that we just did, it would not work because the data has not been reprocessed. Now, as Stephanie was mentioning before, the reprocessing part of your data will allow you to see things that have happened previously. So reprocessing data was inside that rules option. It was right at the top, and it will allow you to reprocess data that has already happened. Here what we're going to take a look at is a speed demon rule, which is a standard rule that's been set. I created it. I'm going to select that one, and I think I'll select another one which is pretty easy to understand, and that's hard acceleration. In other words, usually where it happens is from a stop position at a stoplight, and you just want to find out who's really hitting it hard right out of the gate. All right, so I've chosen two different options here. My speed demon is one rule, and hard acceleration is the other. I'm going to apply my changes, and through that, right off the top, I can see a quick little list. That's all this is a list right on my screen. For the speed demon rule, these are the vehicles that broke the rule. For hard acceleration, these are the vehicles. Now, from there, I can see how long they broke the rule for, the number of miles that they drove, and the number of incidences. If I click on this one here, the little magnifying glass, it will actually take me to it right on the map, and it will identify all of those locations. Now, out of that, if I just take a look at this is a great way to see a summary of your fleet, by the way. If I take a look at this and I see that this particular vehicle, they broke this rule, this speed demon rule, 43 times, I think I might need to talk to them. So I'm going to take a look at that in a second so that we can go into the detail. So from here, if I take a look at this view button, this is also known as a report button, but inside view shows up in many places inside the software. View is how we report. So in view, we have an option here for list, summary, and details. Now to start with, I would suggest that we start up with a summary, take a look at how it looks just as an overall fleet. If I click summary, I have two options. I can choose report or advanced. Anything below advanced is something that has been either set up for you as a default report or a report that has been created and customized, which again, as you get better at it, you can do it yourself as well. So if I take a look just as a basic report, I click on report, and what I have here is just this nice little scenario, and I can open it up in Excel right here, just by my Excel button. It would open it right up into Excel. But right off my screen, I can really see that here's the vehicle. These are the rules that were broken. These are the incident counts. Again, if I take a look down here at this vehicle right here, hard acceleration, speed demon, I can see that this 43 times, and I look at it and go, you know what? I need to investigate this particular incident. I could probably go investigate this one as well because it was 40 times. The other ones are pretty low. So I just take a look at this and say, you know what? I need to go into the detail on this and find out about this vehicle. So it is S41564. So I'm going to go into my options. Still want to look at last week because that's the data that I'm identifying. And instead of looking at all of my vehicles, I only want to look at one. So I select that vehicle. The rules I'm going to look at, I no longer want to see my hard acceleration, so I can click that off. I'm really interested in seeing the speed demon rule. So if I apply changes here, it's now going to show me just the one vehicle, and that is a summary. But what I really want is the detail. So I'm going to go into detail, just choose a report again, and it will show me all of the incidents of when it was broken. Now I can also see here, here's the vehicle because that's the one I chose. What's nice is I can see who was driving it. Now I chose it by vehicle, so it would tell me if different drivers were driving as well. The location of where it happened, so you can actually see that, you know what, this person speeds on the QEW all the time. That's the Queen Elizabeth Way, often. The 403 is also, so I can see if there's any kind of things about it that happen that are similar and take a look at it. Now what I also see here is inside the details is what the max speed is, and then I can also see the posted road speed. Now I'm going to pop this out to Excel so you'll see it, and then we can actually see the entire posted road speed. The time and date that it happened, the duration, and the distance. I'll pop it out to Excel. Keep in mind that these reports can also be set up and emailed to you, which is great for that. So we can have it set up. You don't have to go in here and run the report. We can actually have it set up so that it's emailed to you and it lands right on your desktop Monday morning at 8 a.m. All right, I'll save that, open up the report, and when I open up the report and I take a look at it, I can actually see right here, I can see that I can't quite see the entire amount. So I'm just going to spread that out, and I see that my max road speed is 37 miles an hour. Keep in mind that these are Canadian roads, so that these miles are a little bit out. It might be 60 miles an hour if it was on a US road. And my max speed here was 75. So what's also very important is the distance that's traveled. Now, in this case, if it was under 0.2, I would say I'm not going to bother looking at it. But there's an awful lot here that's more than 0.2. So I probably want to go talk to that driver and see if I can coach him and get him better. Help him along. All right, so what you just saw there was the rules that were broken with exceptions, how to report on them, how to pop it out to Excel, and take a look at the details versus the summary. Very simple way of reporting on it, and again, you can also set that up so it reports out as an email, and I hopefully will be able to show you how to do that. I'm not going to save that, and I will just pop out of there and come back, and now I'm inside my exceptions again. So you can see here, I have exceptions, I have my options, I can take a look at my view. I have either the list, which shows up on screen, or I have the summary or details, and you saw both of those, and then popping it out to Excel. All right, so that's my exceptions report on rules that are broken or conditions that are met. All right, what we also have inside activity is a risk management report, and I'm just going to show you this briefly so you can see a few different things that happen here. It gives you kind of an overview of everything that's going on with the vehicle. If I take a look at my Honda Accord, it's a 2001. The distance it was traveled was 671 miles. The idle time was only 1 minute. It's the summertime, so it shouldn't be idling. After hours trips, if there's after hours trips, they are going to show up here. That is based on, obviously, your work hours. This vehicle did not drive last week. It's actually not connected at the moment. That's what shows up there. And then we have, if I take a look at this vehicle here, the distance was 331 miles. The idle time was 5 minutes. It shows me the after hours trips, and then the exceptions, which is what I wanted to show you here. Again, it shows me 43 times. That's how many times it was broken. 23 minutes and for 26 miles. My hard acceleration, 3 times And again, a hard acceleration isn't normally a whole lot of a count on that, so there isn't usually any miles attached to it. So the risk management report is just a quick little way of showing you, again, the fleet packages it a little bit differently, but it certainly works, and you can do it whichever way you want in that case. All right. If I take a look at some of the options here, you can actually see right here, my exception rules. This is the same idea as what you just saw inside exceptions. So I could actually change it. I don't want to see this hard acceleration, so I can just take this one off. All I want to see is the speed demon rule. Click it off. It is set to run reports by individual vehicles or drivers, and then you can also set them up just to run by group, which is an option there. Apply the changes, and all now it's showing me is just the speed demon rule. So I can qualify it with my options similar to what I did with the exceptions. We're going to take a look now at our fuel data, because I think everybody wants to know about fuel data, certainly once they get started. It's just something that everybody really wants more information on. Now, fuel data, as I start here, I do want to explain fuel data is in beta, and the reason it's in beta is we are always getting more information. This works very well for your fleet. That is usually about 2008 and newer, we are getting fuel for it. We do get some fuel for something back farther than that. I can tell you for sure that this vehicle here is a 2006, and it's giving me all fuel information. It's great. It will not give it to you for all vehicles, but anything 2008 and newer, it usually does. Just by clicking on my fuel usage report, I get this nice little scenario of finding out everything about the fleet. Now, if you remember, my fleet is not 4, it's bigger than that. If I look right here, I have a list that is limited. If I click on that, it will actually show me I'm not getting results for 2 of these vehicles. Why? Because one of them is a 2001 Honda. I don't get fuel information for that Honda. It's just too old. And for this vehicle here, I believe it's an older vehicle as well, although I also know that that particular vehicle was not connected last week. The device was unplugged. It was in for maintenance and it hadn't been plugged back in yet. It will tell me if I'm not getting information on a vehicle, it will actually put it inside that list limited and let you know what's going on. All right, so if I click on inside any one of these, it will actually give me more information. So I have here my fill-ups, which is great. I can then find out exactly what's going on, where they filled up. You can even set those, let's say, regular gas stations. You can have them set up inside zones so that you can have the zones set up, and they would be underlined here as well so that you can see when they're actually filling up inside the, I'll say, the qualified gas stations they're allowed to go to. Shows you your gas mileage, how well you're doing with it, how many gallons were put in, and it will also show you what your mileage is at that time. So that's your odometer reading. And if we pop out with the magnifying glass, it will show you where you are on the map. So it shows you with each vehicle, if it gets that fill-up information, it will give it to you. Also have a nice little chart right here, and it is just going to graph it for us so that we can actually see how this vehicle is filling up and where it's filling up, its times, that idea. Now, the red one is actually the diagnostic fuel level, and the blue one is the fuel added. Now, the fuel added is the actual fuel that's happening in the vehicle. So you can see how it goes down, and as I move along, you can actually see how much fuel is being used. Now, I'm just going to go up here. You can, again, you can see as I move along what it looks like and how much is being used up. If they were idling for quite a while, you'd be able to see how many gallons were used up in that idle because they didn't go anywhere. Great little graphic to be able to show you. Inside some vehicles, you may not get all information, and I want to show you this as a sample right here. This truck right here is actually a 2009, but it is an import, and we don't get all of our fuel information on it. We do not get fill-ups. Just to let you know, there are 9 different data points that we can get on fuel, and depending on what those different data points are that we get from the engine, we will create something like a fill-up. We can't do it if we don't get the information. On that particular vehicle, we didn't get it. On this one we do. On this 2006, which I was very impressed, we also get all that information. So you can actually see everything going on. and where the fill-ups are, how many gallons were put in, what the mileage is. Fuel usage is a great report. It is a very quick way of showing you what's going on with your fleet. You can see it right on screen. I can see right here that this particular vehicle is not very good on gas mileage, and neither is this one. These two here, well, not bad. One's better than the other. So I can see that information right from there. That is my fuel data. Steph, any questions on that one?
You have one question that asks if this works on diesel.
Steph, you might be able to answer that better than I. Again, it depends on what the vehicle is. I know we were working through that for diesel.
Progress is occurring. It's looking very promising, but we're still in the testing phase. So you probably won't see it in the software for a bit yet. I know the automotive team was working on it. Can we take that offline and come back to you with that?
Yeah, I think that would be best. All right, and again, because it's in beta, we're always getting more information. We're always getting better at it. Okay, and that beta sign may never come off for that reason, because we're always working on getting better fuel. Diesel was something on the light-duty vehicles that we were having an issue with, and we won't report on it. That's the good thing, is we will not report and give you the wrong data. It would come up with a limited list right here. Okay, last part that I want to cover with you is really just a touch of basic reporting and some dashboard basics. And I want to touch on it because I mentioned before about emailing reports to you. It's great that you can go in and create reports, or you can report on your exceptions and that idea, but what if you want that report once a week to show up in your inbox? Or let's say that you want to see the fuel usage report once a week. Monday mornings, I want to see how I did with my fuel last week. Or I want to see who was speeding last week, that idea. And I don't want to have to come in here and run it. So what you can actually do is have it set up so that it would actually email to you. All right, I'm going to go take a look inside my administration, and administration is where reports are set up. Now, we ran reports from different areas. You saw reports being run from exceptions, from risk management. We can run reports right from vehicles. If I want to take a look and actually run a report, again, that view button is reporting, so I have a list on screen. I have a simple report or an advanced report, and then I have a few other options here as well. Those are ones that are either by default or they have been created as a customized. As I was saying, last portion here inside reporting. So I can report on vehicles, and I can take an advanced report on all of my vehicles. It would tell me all the information I could possibly need to know about my vehicle. I can also do reports, as I showed you, inside my risk management. I can do reports inside trip history, inside my engine. A number of different places I run these reports every time I see the view button. Now, how do I set them up so that I can actually go and email a report out so that it lands in your inbox without you having to go and run the report? And I do that right here inside reports, and I can choose report view. And what it will show me is a list of either custom reports or default reports. And I have a number of different ones here. Inside custom reports, I have default reports. ABC Watchdog, I have engine faults, engine status, a number of different things listed through here, and they are quite exhaustive. Inside my risk management, I have things like safety scorecard, seatbelt violations, top 5 speeders. There's all kinds of things I can add here, or I can set up to run either a report and land in your inbox, or you can see here I can also have it set up to run on your dashboard. So this is where you do it right here. Now I'm just going to take a look here at a simple one that we just created. If I go look at the fuel report, this is one that you just saw on your screen, so you're used to it. I'm just going to take a look at that advanced fuel usage report. It's a good one. It gives you all the information you just saw on your screen. So if I click on this, and what I want to do is I have 3 options here. I have report view, dashboard view, and email the report. Now, do I want to show the report in the drop-down list? Well, yes, I do. In the dashboard, I want to turn it on my dashboard. My dashboard is a simple way to see quick reports, gives me a history of what's going on with my fleet, just kind of gives me a story right off the bat. Now, I have my dashboard turned on, which are these 2 options. I display it on my dashboard, and yes, I do. I want it on my own, and I want it to show up for everyone everyone in the company should see this advanced fuel usage report. That's what I have it set up. If I just wanted it set up for certain groups or certain managers, I could do that. And then when I want it run for, now in this case, I want to run it for fuel usage report. I want to run it for last month. Very simple to set it up. It's going to refresh monthly. My next run date is going to be August the 18th at 12:29, which is basically it's already passed because I'm just setting it up now. So I might set it up for August 1st so that it would give me all of July. And who does this belong to? If you remember again, part of groups, I said groups also work with reports, and that's where that shows up right here. So if I only wanted it set up for a certain type of group, I could. I really want it set up for everyone, so I'm going to leave it like that. Certain times when you want to have things grouped together, that would be for trending reports, monthly trending reports. You might set them up monthly. All right, last part to that. So that was for the dashboard. The last part here is the email report. If I click on email report, and I'm going to set it up and say it's going to be turned on. So I'm going, basically the first two options again are my email options, and they're set up as reporting. Do I want to email the report to me? Well, yes, I do. Do I want it to email to anyone else? Who is on the recipient list? So if I set it up for the groups and I say everyone, every single user that is part of the company group will get this report. If I only want it set up for certain, let's say certain vehicle types, I only want it set up for my light duty vehicles because that's who I'm identifying here inside this advanced fuel report. That's what I could choose right here. I'm going to set it up for everyone, so I have no groups set up. I will choose everyone in the company group, and now you can see there's 63 users set here. Now, something that's also an option here, and I won't go into details here, but if I can redirect the report just for testing is really what it is. I can have it set up for 63 users and just test it to go to myself. The type of report that it is, it's going to be an Excel report. My date range is going to be similar to what I showed you inside the dashboard. It's going to be for last month. It is going to refresh daily. My next run date will be September the 1st for August. I was off on that last one I explained. So it would be September the 1st for August, and it belongs to everyone, all in the group. So all locations, all vehicle types will get it. And it is going to report if it was set up, let's say, as a trend, and it would be a 3-month trend idea, then you might break it out monthly, so I'm actually getting it grouped by month. All right, that's everything that there is there to email the report. To put it on the dashboard, that's it. And all I do here is press save. What I now have, if I type in fuel, and I'm just doing a search there so I can find out, what I just did was my advanced fuel usage report. I have just set it up on the dashboard last month, and it's going to run monthly. And I've also set it up to email last month, and it runs monthly. What does that do? It means it will set on my dashboard. It will always be there. It will be run monthly. On my email, again, it would be set up to run September the 1st. It's going to land in your inbox on the time that I had set. That's it. That's all there is to setting up those reports. I don't have to go in and run them. They will run for me and come into my email. Now, if I take a look here on that last portion of it, I can actually see that it would show up inside my dashboard. Now, these things that show up on your dashboard are set. You saw it inside dashboards. You say that I want to see this report inside my dashboard. And by doing that, it has set up so that I can see kind of a history of what's going on in my fleet. It just gives me a story, really quick story. If I take a look here, I have top 5 speeders. Well, only 2 of them were yesterday. I only have 5 in the fleet, and only 2 of them sped. This report right here is an excellent report. I suggest anyone have it on their dashboard. It is a default report. It is your watchdog report, and it allows you to see what is communicating. Make sure your entire fleet is working. Inside your dashboard, as I said, it gives you kind of an overview of your whole fleet really quickly, trend reports, both for fuel, for idling, and for mileage. All of these things show up on our Geotab site. These are reports that you can have downloaded and make it part of your fleet as well. So they're available to you, and you can make them part of your dashboard. And with that, I would like to say enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us.